Background. Okay. So I hit the right button. Okay. This happens to be a vignette on a bridge, of a bridge across the Niagara River that's on a note. And I did not write this talk. This was written by a guy named Bob Corver, and I received a copy of his talk when I was in Los Angeles with the NA. He gave it to me. He said, here, you can do this talk anytime you want. So I've gone through it. I've made a few modifications to make it a little bit shorter. He had a lot of extra information in his talk. So, we're going to talk about whether the bridge is good. There's the note. It's on a $3 note of the Niagara Suspension Bridge Bank. It was a bank in Queenston, Ontario. Where's that? That's across the river from Lewiston. So we had Lewis on one side and the Queen on the other. What the heck? Okay, and it's a $3 note. And it's got a nice little vignette on it. Obviously this note has been used quite a bit. And it was, you know, hopefully the bank was set up to earn some money to help build the bridge. But was the bridge ever built? Okay. Okay. Now, we talk about stuff on notes. This happens to be a $5 note from the Chesapeake and Ohio Canal Company. And it's a canal company, so it has a canal on the note. See in the background, you can see a lock. Okay, here's another, the Cincinnati Whitewater Canal Company. And you have the canal and its towpath. Actually, you can see the horse on one side. Or it's probably a mule, I don't know. And then you have, oh, this is an interesting one, the Susquehanna Bridge and Bank Company with a train on it. Now that's a very, very, very early train. Okay, when they call it the Iron Horse. So there's vignettes on all sorts of notes. Here's one from the City and Bank of New Haven with a vignette of New Haven. At least you think it's New Haven. Well, that's what it looks like. And vignettes could be fantasies or they could be real. Somebody could have sat down and actually engraved it like it looked. Now, for this note from New Haven, is it real? Take a look. You tell me, is it real? Looks pretty close. Now, the picture at the bottom is a current picture, and the note at the top is from the 1840s. Now, here's a contemporary illustration of the same place, and take a look. They match. So sometimes the vignettes are indeed accurate. So we're back to this one. So since they can be accurate, is the bridge accurate? Okay. Well, there are romanticized vignettes on everything. You know, you have the, except for the dog. The dog is real. Now, whether his name is Fidelity, I don't know. How many people have a dog whose middle name is Fidelity? Anybody? Anybody?
I know.
But that's Fidelity, not Fido. Maybe that Fido is his, you know, last name. Okay. Okay, we're going to go through his research methodology for, is that a real bridge? Was that bridge built? Okay. So here we go. So what does he do? He goes and looks up things on Google. Does everybody use Google? All the time. Yeah, sometimes you don't find enough, sometimes you find too much, and sometimes it takes a while to get the real answer. You know, you have to know how to ask the question. I bought my wife a Google Home. You have to know how to ask her the question to get the answer. Okay, this is the number of bridges that were built at one time or another across the Niagara River. And only one of them is listed as a suspension bridge, and there were 3 varieties. Okay. So suspension bridge number 1 is right here. It was built in 1855. Well, the note I show you was issued in 1840. Wait a minute. That's 15 years before this bridge. So obviously, that's not the bridge. Okay. Says so right up there. Okay, so, and you look at the two, the vignette and the lithograph, and no, they're not even close. Because the one in the vignette, the pillars are out in the water, and in the real bridge, they were up on the land. With all sorts of supporting stuff down below. I always found it interesting, these little lines coming down, holding the bridge steady. They were actually wind stabilizing cables. So when the wind blew, the bridge didn't shake too much. Because if it did, it'd break. Okay. So, the suspension bridge number 1 was also known as the International Bridge, suspension bridge, the Niagara Railway suspension bridge, the Niagara suspension bridge, and Railroad suspension bridge. Ooh, lots of names. So, research is all about knowledge, so you had to learn a lot of facts. AKA, Niagara suspension bridge, was it this suspension bridge or was it another suspension bridge? And do they mean the same thing? And suspension bridges don't always tend to look alike. So we go on. Here's another view of that suspension bridge, and it doesn't look anything like the first one. Okay, so we go on. Now we're talking about this William Merritt. He promoted the first Niagara suspension bridge as well as the Welland Canal. And I'll talk more about him later. But which was the first Niagara suspension bridge? Okay. With 16 bridges, each with more than one name, he's going to attack the question. Back to Google, search the same Niagara suspension bridge. Well, he found something from Brock University, I think that's probably Canadian, that they had a $1 note in their repository. And if you read this, it says, the Niagara Suspension Bridge Bank operated in Queenston in 1840, and the bank issued notes in the denomination of 10, 5, and $1. And it featured a drawing of the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge. And it said the bank failed in a year after it was established. Well, their sources were a little screwy. Because this is a $3 note. See, let's see, 3. And their data says 10, 5, and 1. Not quite. But if we go down further, the cashier and the president, yeah, those are real. Okay, so it's not suspension bridge number 1, anyhow. It could be the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge, which was number 3. Okay, so we go back to Brock University. You know, their bridge talks about being in Queenston. But the note was issued 10 years prior to the construction of the bridge. So I can have a bridge on it before the bridge was constructed. Okay. 2 facts straight. The name, Niagara Suspension Bridge, does not always equal Niagara Suspension Bridge. According to Brock, Niagara Suspension Bridge equals the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge. Okay. Does this note show the contemplated Queenston-Lewiston Bridge? Does the bridge design exist a full decade before construction? And are there convincing features that this vignette was engraved to order? If this is a generic bridge vignette, was it used elsewhere? Now, a lot of times there were generic vignettes used by banknote companies. The American Banknote Company had old stocks of them that they sold a while back. Okay. It says here, after a lifetime of looking at vignettes, I know that generic buildings, canals, railroads, etc., are often seen in backgrounds. These are intended to evoke be evocative, not accurate. Okay, now, so, if you have a bridge, that could mean you control the water. If it's a steamboat, you control the wind. If it's a railroad, you control the space. If it's a pocket watch, you control time, or a clock. And enough time and we will command the air, maybe. Okay, hubris extremis, I like that thing. So, we go on. So, there are generic bridges. This is a generic bridge in the background of this vignette. Okay, there's another generic bridge. And a canal too, generic canal, with a generic lock. Okay, here's another bridge. Guy sitting there with his sheep. Could be Ellsworth's farm, but they don't have any bridge. Never mind, inside joke. Here's another generic bridge, another generic canal, another lock. Okay, so, is it generic? You don't know. So let's focus on some uncited sources. The Niagara Suspension Bridge Bank, an unincorporated joint stock bank, opened in December 1836, even though Brock said it was, University said 1840, in Queenston with a capital of 7,700 pounds. That's not a lot, but that's pretty good for 1836. And, from the same source, they issued $1, $3, $5, $10, and $20 notes, and the bank failed in December 1841 because of recession at that period of time, and they had outstanding at the end of that $62,384 in notes. So it was in business for about 5 years. And all denominations except the 20 had this vignette on it. I don't know what that red spot is. Interesting. Okay. And it did business, the bank did business mostly on the American side of the border. So we can assume that the Americans bore the greater financial burden of the failure. Okay. You don't have to read that. I've read it. I don't know what it says either. From Wikipedia, whoever wrote it has a good command of words, but not necessarily the English language. Okay, here's the Lewiston Bridge at one time. This is in 1915. Looked like he had to do a lot more. Has to answer some questions. Okay, so no contemporary views. Now this is a picture in 1915, and there is a suspension bridge. Okay, that's the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge number 2. And you can see the falls right up here. And there's 2 other bridges, one there and one there. But this is where we're looking at, the suspension bridge. Okay. Now here's another view of the suspension bridge and the arch bridge and a dam and a power plant, probably taken, well, he doesn't say when, but at one point in time. Now, this one looks somewhat like our vignette, but not totally accurate. Okay, and here's another look at the bridge in the winter. He obviously had a hard time in Niagara Falls in 1957 and 58, but he's from California, I think, so, you know, doesn't understand the white stuff. So, you know, you go up in the mountains and you get the white stuff. Okay. Okay, words and names are critical, and do not conflate the Niagara Suspension Bridge Bank Company with the Queenston-Lewiston Bridge Company. The bank company was not the bridge company, and the bank was out of business before the bridge was built. Okay? So, he began to suspect that the name was chosen as a marketing ploy, suggesting that bridge revenue would support the bank. And this happens to be a picture of a note he got off the internet of a $1 note of that Niagara Suspension Bridge Bank. And you see it does have that vignette on it. He's going to be talking about that guy in a minute. Okay, who are the president and cashier of the bank? Gilbert Mcmicken and Joseph Hamilton. Okay. And as he goes through the record, he noticed that he found two connections between the bank and a bridge, which he's calling dot 5. So the half bridge, not number 1, but number 0.5. Okay. And it was, the bank was chartered in 1836. And it talks about a Joseph Hamilton and a Gilbert Mcmicken and all these things, so who applied for the bank. So you have the bank in 1840 that had Hamilton and Mcmicken, and the bridge in 1836, 0.5, that had Hamilton in the corporation and McKicking. You have Mcmicken and McMicking in the 1836 corporation, but they both had the same name. Coincidence? Doesn't think so. And it's very possible that they're equal. Nobody spelled things the same way in the 19th century. They couldn't afford that. So, we get closer to Mcmicken and McMicking and Joseph Hamilton. Okay. So, we don't know who the picture is. Now, here's signatures on two different notes of McMicking, and they look very similar. Okay, we'll go on. Okay, Gilbert Mcmicken was born in 1813 in London, or in Scotland. I don't know how they could get confused, but they did. And moved to Upper Canada in 1832. He was a businessman and a public servant. He did such things as he was a counselor, a reeve, like a sheriff, I believe, postmaster, mayor, excise officer, stipendiary magistrate, which means I think he got paid, and a justice of the peace. He did a lot of things for Canada. Okay, he formed a special police intelligence unit to fight terrorism, way back then. He was a commissioner for the Dominion Police in 1869, which later merged with the Canadian Mounted Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And he worked forwarding goods from Chippewa near Niagara. He later moved to Queenston, where he formed a forwarding company and a partnership with the James Hamilton. So he went to a lot of different places. Now let's look at James Hamilton. Okay. He took a leading part in opening the Queenston Suspension Bridge in 1851, both as warden and as secretary-treasurer of the company that built the bridge. And we're talking about the real bridge in 1851, not the bridge of the corporation of 1836. Okay. So a Reverend William Cochrane, in writing about Canadian men, he was the chief promoter of the Queenston Suspension Bridge and held over 1/4 of the stock. Okay, so there he is as president of the bank and working with the bridge 0.5. Okay, Bridge 1 in 1851 that was actually built. You see, got the same guy in there doing all that good stuff. So he failed in his search for a lot of stuff about James Hamilton. Okay, he purchased some land, he chartered the bank, he was president of the bank, and then he just kind of disappeared. So, you recall the image of him. Not a very good picture of it, but that's all right. He doesn't know if that's the elusive James Hamilton or not, but he felt that it was related to a Robert Hamilton, who was a leading businessman, who was born in Scotland in 1753, and he had 5 sons, one of which was Joseph. Okay, and you know, you can read all that. And Dr. Joseph Hamilton was the first son of Robert Hamilton with his second wife, Mary Herkimer. Okay, short biography. He was in the medical profession in Upper Canada from 1783 to 1850.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I think he was born in 1783, but he died around 1850. Okay. And he was a son. And he was very accomplished, not quite as accomplished as his brother. But, okay. His brother did a lot more, but everything kind of fits. So now we get here. Why did Hamilton disappear in 1841? Well, because there was a little bit of an affair of honor. The parties crossed the river where 2 shots were exchanged without damage to either party, and the affair ended. You call that these days a duel? Yeah, and he was dueling with a guy that did a lot of dueling and killed a lot of people. Not good. But he was also in business, or monkey business, banking business, whatever. And in 1841, all the money settled in Toronto. And when the Irish moved to Toronto, packed in ships that were not very sanitary, they got sick. Thousands died of typhus. And so did Dr. Hamilton. They were treating the patients. Among those accepted the post to incur risk was Dr. Joseph Hamilton and Dr. Grasset. Both of these died of fever, and both died as gallant, heroic death, as if on the field of battle. So Hamilton disappears. He was a consulting physician, but he became very active in trying to help the Irish immigrants who were very sick. And it basically killed them. Well, they didn't know anything about sanitation, which got him. Okay. And he died of the fever. Here we go. Okay, he left this grand life to die in the fever sheds of Toronto. That's where they put the Irish. I don't know why, but that's what they did. Okay, so we have the 2 people that were involved in the bank. Okay. So, from 1843 report, Mcmicken's surety was customs collector as John Hamilton, son of Robert Hamilton, his first wife, Catherine Askin. I think it's safe to say that Cashier Mcmicken and Mcmicking are one and the same. Okay, and we do another search for, now this is interesting, Edward